Howdy, Bob Brown again. So, I guess that last video created a little controversy, actually not so much, it was just a few guys. But this one, probably gonna create some controversy. We're gonna talk about the straps. So, I created a video, I don't know, a month or so ago, a couple months, whatever, and I'm gonna post it in a link in the thing about how tight strap is supposed to be applied, and I'll recap a little bit. Basically, there's no rule anywhere that talks about the tightness of a strap, except in the WAF rules. There is a rule that says a competitor can ask the strap to be loosened if it's cranked down too tight, hurting their hand, cutting off circulation, or anything like that. So there is no rule that says a strap gets cranked down crazy tight. There's only a rule that says it can be loosened. Now, in the WAL, there's no rule on it at all. I think the PAL doesn't have a rule on it at all. Most leagues don't, but the WAF does, and I would think the IFA does, because they, started by copying the WAF rules and adopting them. But, after this last match with Dallas and Craig, I mean, yeah, I'll admit, we all know Dallas wants that strap super tight, okay? Everyone knows that. And if I'm Dallas, I want that too. And, Craig and I had discussed it. And I'm like, Craig, I don't think you want the strap super tight, you'd rather have it loose. And I'm like, so it should just be snugged. I mean, if one guy wants it tight and the other guy wants it loose, well, then the referee should just apply it, snug it down and call it a day. And that's what was agreed upon, prior to that match. Dallas wasn't happy about it. I get that. He's used to a tight strap. And then he made a video saying how he had the loosest strap he's ever had. And I thought about that. And I thought, wait a minute. And this was my opinion. I'm like, no, you didn't have the loosest strap you've ever had. You, for the first time, had a properly applied strap. And then when you asked for it to be tightened down, the other competitor said no. Because I'll admit, over the course of 30 years of arm wrestling, generally the people who want a tight strap are the ones who have a weaker hand or a weaker wrist, and they don't want pressure on their hand or their wrist coming from the competitor, so they crank that strap down. So the pressure on their hand, which then applies pressure to their wrist, goes away, and they can access their full arm power. So they want it really tight. Well, so when they ask for it to be tight, generally speaking, either the other competitor also wants it tight, or the other competitor doesn't know that he can simply just say no. The refs have gotten really accustomed to listen, hey, you want it tight? Okay, crank it down. They haven't really gotten accustomed to asking the other guy's opinion first. So, in my opinion, what happened was he actually got a competitor that was like, no, I don't want it super tight. Well then, so what do you do? Right there, in the moment, what do you do? This guy wants it really, really tight. This guy wants it loose. You compromise. Snug it down, call it good. So inevitably what happens though, because we've all been programmed that when the strap gets applied, we want the strap lower on our forearm. And whether that's right or wrong is another story, but most of us ask to have it low. So inevitably what happens is two guys get the strap on, I want it low, he wants it low. The referee tightens it down pretty good. I mean, it's on there really tight. And then the guys go to get their grip. Now in WAL, it's a set grip still, but in every other league, they can still fight to get the grip. And as they're fighting to get the grip, that strap rides back up their forearm to their wrist, and it becomes a little looser. So inevitably, the guy who wants a tight strap says, hey, crank it back down. Well, why? especially if the other guy wants it cranked down, great. But if the other guy doesn't, why would you crank it back down? Okay, you had a properly applied strap, and via your own actions, it became loose. Why would we then simply tighten it down again to satisfy one guy when you already have the strap applied properly? The other guy doesn't want it changed. This guy wants it changed. Why would you just automatically agree with this guy? Okay? Remember, the object of the strap is just not to give an advantage one way or the other. The object of the strap is just to simply hold the hands together. You know? I would argue that, and I'll admit, we all know there is a good side and a bad side to the strap. Devin Lorette changed the way that we put the strap on, and it did mitigate a lot of it, but there's still a good side and a bad side of the strap to be on. For those that don't know, the palm, whatever hand you're arm wrestling with, the palm should face the ref who's putting the strap on, okay? That puts the buckle on the back of your opponent. Now, the fact that the buckle is on the back of your opponent, that is not what creates the advantage. The advantage gets created by the way it gets looped underneath. It's the bottom one, and most of the pressure comes from that bottom one and gives a little buckling of the wrist. But what creates that advantage is the fact that the strap is so tight. If the strap is just simply snugged down, so it's not loose anywhere, but it's not cranked and cranked. If it's just snugged down, that advantage disappears. So all of a sudden you have our current strap, the way we currently apply it, and all of a sudden that good side and bad side of the strap goes away, or is mitigated down to where it's really, really small, by not cranking down the strap, okay? So this got me curious. I kept thinking. And so I ended up calling all the top refs I knew. I called Tim Talmadge because he was just at the event. I called Leonard Harkless, former head ref of the WAF and head ref of the IFA. I called Bart Wood, head ref of the WAL. I called Luke Pulcher, who's a master ref with the WAF. And I called Bill Collins, who's the head ref of the UAL. I think everyone probably knows all those people. And I asked him, we talked about this. I said, why do we just simply crank the strap down? And well, actually, the question I asked was this. After you've applied the strap, so you put the strap on, you tie it around, you pull it down however hard you think is appropriate to pull it down, which means in your mind, refs, you have all applied a perfectly valid, competent strap applied. Like, it's great, tight as it should be. How many times after that does at least one of the competitors say, tighten it down more? Well, we got all kinds of ranges of answers. We got 95% of the time, 70% of the time, 60% of the time, 80% of the time. And Bill Collins is the only one that said 20% of the time. And I said, and then I told Bill all the other percentages. And he goes, well, I think that's because of the way he applies the strap. He pulls it down, pulls it out, down, out, down. He does this like 3 times. It's kind of like, let's call it a ratchet system to get it tight. That's the way he does it. Everyone explained to me how they put the strap on, and they explained to me how they do it to make sure that it's tight. Not cranked down going nuts tight, but tight. And I'm like, great. So in all the times you do that, the average percentage was like 60-some% of the time, at least one of the pullers says, tighten it down even more. And I'm like, and what do you normally, and so what do you do? Most of them said, well, I'll tighten it down. A few of them said, well, no, I'll ask the other guy, do you want it tighter? If he says yes, cranks it. If he says no, he leaves it alone. And I'm like, that's exactly what's fair. I mean, why does the guy who want it cranked, again, after the strap has been properly applied, the ref thinks it's been properly applied, why does the guy who wants it tighter just automatically get his way without asking the other guy? You know? And that's what I think is crazy. I mean, me personally, when I go to the World Championships, and I've ended up in the straps a number of times, as soon as that strap's about to be applied, I always go to the head ref. I say, hey, I know he's gonna want it tight and I want it loose. So can we just, snug it down and that's good? Every ref always says, yep, that sounds great. Now here's what actually happens is it gets snugged down. Okay, this is okay, not great, but it's okay. And inevitably he says, tighten it down. Sometimes the ref just forgets about the fact that I just had that conversation with him and he just cranks it down. And I go, whoa, hey ref, we just talked about this. And he's like, oh, that's right. And he loosens it back up, snugs it, and we're good. Or even worse, we've had the competitor himself just reach over and grab the strap and crank it down. And I'm like, hey ref, come on, he can't do that. And we fix the problem. But to me, that seems the most fair, And if we actually following rules, well, the only place the rules even discussed at all is in the WAF and maybe the IFA. But it seems the most fair. One guy wants it crazy tight, the other guy wants it crazy loose. Just snug it down once and call it good. And when you start fighting for your grip, or when the ref is setting the grip, if that strap happens to work its way up from where you asked it to be, then you got to live with your decision, and you go, So to me, tightening down a strap crazily, and there are times I would really like to have it tightened down. Okay, depending on who I'm pulling and what I'm about to try, I want it cranked down, so I'll ask to have it cranked down. But if the other guy says no, well, then I'll just live with it. But why does the guy with the, probably, not all the time, but why does the guy with the weaker hand, weaker wrist get extra, more than just the strap? Like, he's looking for the strap. Why does he get more than just the strap by having it also cranked down to mitigate his hand and wrist? Why does he get that benefit? Because he's weaker, he gets a benefit? That seems odd to me, right? So, in my opinion, one guy wants it tight, one guy wants it loose. The ref just applies it the way the ref applies it, and then that's it. It's over. And, if both guys want it tight, sure, crank it down. Heck, if both guys want it loose, loosen it up. But if one wants it tight and one wants it loose, the ref just applies it once and calls it a day. I think that's the most fair. I think it should be written into the rules that way. I think it should be written into all the rules that way. And that way, once it's written into the rules, all these refs don't have to deal with this argument right there on the TV, or in the middle of tournaments. And everyone will know coming in, when I'm done tightening the strap, that's it. So I just thought I'd share my points, what you guys think, hash it out, tell me what you guys think, and have a great day.